Well, Phyllis Bennis is a fellow with the Institute for Policy Studies and a specialist on U.S. foreign policy with a focus on the Middle East. She joins us now from Washington, D.C. Good to have you with us. So does the U.S. military now have to explain how we went from a situation of weeks of very few, if any, verified reports of U.S. aircraft being downed to U.S. media reporting at least 4 incidents of U.S. aircraft being targeted within just a few hours?
Yeah, I think this is going to be particularly difficult for the White House to explain, particularly because they have focused so much in recent days about the claims, obviously false at this point, that the U.S. controls the skies over Iran, that the U.S. has destroyed all of Iran's capabilities in air defense. We don't know exactly what capabilities still remain, but clearly they are usable. They have some defense against these attacks. And, you know, whether the Iranians were holding back some of their capabilities to use later, I don't know. And we probably won't know that for quite some time. But I think this is going to have a very significant impact on how they are trying to sell this war to the American people, particularly to the so-called MAGA base, the core base of the Trump administration, which has largely supported this war. 70% of the MAGA supporters said that they agreed with going to war in Iran. Whether they continue to support that, knowing that U.S. planes are being shot down, pilots may be missing, we don't know what's going to happen to the 1 or perhaps 2 pilots who have not been found and located. This changes the equation. I don't think it changes the military equation necessarily, but it certainly changes the propaganda equation.
Let me play devil's advocate here and bring you the line. I've been hearing from analysts who are more supportive, perhaps, of the White House's policy on this, and they say, look, this is just a few out of thousands of sorties. Will it ultimately change the course of this conflict and especially the plans for any upcoming operations?
I think it could change the plans based on, again, the propaganda side. The question of how much support is there in the United States has to be taken into account. The White House has just come forward in the last few hours with a demand to Congress for raising the extraordinarily, horrifyingly high military budget of this year, which passed the $1 trillion mark. $1 trillion, Sammy, that's one of those numbers that you can't even imagine how big it is. And now they're saying they want a budget of $150 trillion next year. Sorry, $1.5 trillion next year. This is one of those bizarre things that nobody can even comprehend what this means. But at the same time, the president said, we can't afford childcare because we have a war to fight. So he's saying that we can afford to put another $500 billion into this war, which we are clearly not just winning easily. And we can't afford to pay for our children. We can't afford.
Can he make the argument,
stamps.
Phyllis, that he'll get the money from the Strait of Hormuz? The U.S. president today has been talking about how he can open the straits, he can take Iran's oil and make a fortune, I think was the words he used.
Yeah, he did say that. And maybe he thinks he can. I think the people around him, hopefully, are saying, Mr. President, you better be careful what you claim that you can do, because we're not at all clear how that would happen. You know, the Strait of Hormuz is closed right now. Iran is calling the shots in the strait. They're allowing some ships to go through that are flagged by countries not connected in any way to Israel and or the United States. I don't see that changing anytime soon. His claim that somehow the strait will naturally open all by itself the instant that the fighting stops simply doesn't work. It doesn't take into account the role of the big insurance companies who make the decisions about this. They're not going to rely on a claim from Trump or anyone else that says, oh, as soon as the fighting stops, they'll just open it up. Oh, we stopped fighting, so you can go through now. They're going to want guarantees, and Trump can't provide them. So I think this is going to be a very, very difficult challenge when he says that we're sending Iran back to the Stone Age where they belong, this incredible kind of racist, Islamophobic language that he's been using that also doesn't match what they're facing in terms of opposition. He said just a few days ago, Iran is no longer a threat, and then went on to say, but we're going to hit them even harder in the next 2 to 3 weeks. If they're not a threat, why are we going to hit them harder? It's talking about the war crimes he's anticipating, the war crimes he has said he will carry out. We will go after the oil industry. We will go after the electrical plants. We will go after water purification. These are all war crimes, and there will be accountability for this. I think that what we saw with the lack of accountability, the lack of any real way of holding Israel accountable in their genocide in Gaza, this is not going to be allowed again for Israel and the United States to carry out war crimes with impunity. There will be accountability at some point on this.
All right, Phyllis Bennis there, co-director of the New Internationalism Project at the Institute for Policy Studies.